G'day guys, and welcome to our second episode of our Australia trip recap. We're Hayley and Brad, and this is a new video series that we are bringing to our channel where we give a bit of an update on our week, more insight into our travels, and a behind the scenes look at how we make our videos.
The recap series was like a little idea that we conceived, and we weren't really sure on how it would be received by you guys, but the response for the first episode was really overwhelmingly positive. And we're so glad you enjoyed it, because even maybe 10 minutes before the video was scheduled to go up last week, we were both like, oh my god, should we just pull it? I don't really want to.
We were so nervous to put it out there. Hey?
It's like putting out our first episode again. We're like, but at least we knew no one was watching when we put out our first episode, whereas this one we had a good base of subscribers. So to do something different and to have it received well was really nice, and we enjoyed making that episode last week.
So thank you. We appreciate all those lovely comments.
Yeah, although the backdrop's not as good as what it was last week. We were sitting in the middle of the Gibb River last week, and there was no wind, and it was really quite beautiful. Today we are in quite a beautiful place, but it's quite windy and noisy outside from the waves. You know, there's pros and cons to being beachfront living. We're making do with what we got. We're inside for today.
So speaking of where we're filming from today, we do want to start these episodes with where are we currently, because as we touched on last week, there is that delay between what goes up on YouTube in our travel episodes compared to real time where we are. So the video that we just put up on the weekend was the second part of our Exmouth adventures, where we hired a boat and spent a few amazing, probably the best weeks of our trip so far.
Absolutely.
In Exmouth.
Without a doubt. And
that was filmed in the first 2 weeks of August. So now obviously it's September, towards the end of September, and we're in the NT.
Yep, right now we're at Dundee Beach.
And it's epic.
It is really cool. It's like a really good free camp. It's like Notch Point in Queensland, if you've ever been to Notch Point, or what was the one up in Cape York that we went to?
Moonty Beach.
Moonty Beach or something like that, up near Bamaga it was. It's very much the same like that, and crocodiles, and it's been really cool staying here. So yeah, we're getting a little taste of the NT now. Got a bit of the NT to explore and see before the wet season closes in, which is closing in pretty quick. It's a bit breezy here right now. We've got the window open as much as we can to let some wind in, but not have the wind noise for the microphone. But it's 28 degrees inside right now, and I don't think it gets below 28 degrees.
Well, it's obviously like 35 or more outside.
Yeah,
it's so hot.
Very, very warm, and the wet season build-up is very real. But I think we're going to experience this even more in the coming weeks. So. Yeah,
so when we finished the Gibb River Road, we had 2 weeks up our sleeve between finishing the Gibb and when we actually fly out of Darwin. We're going back home for a visit, and we're flying out of Darwin, so we only had a 2-week window between finishing the Gibb and when we leave. So we knew that we couldn't do all of the NT in that time, and the way that we like to travel is that we pick a section to do well, and then we save what we can't do for another time. So that's why in this 2-week period we decided to do Katherine, Litchfield, Dundee, Darwin. I know it sounds like a lot, but that's what we decided to do this time around. And then next year, when we loop back around WA again and come back into the NT, we'll do the other side of NT and the things that we didn't get to see, and hopefully Arnhem Land as well.
Kakadu is a big one on our list to do and see. But and also Arnhem Land, which is another far out trip. We did. It's funny because seems like every year we do a big trip within our trip.
A remote trip.
Yeah, like a remote trip. We did Cape York the first year. This year we obviously just finished the Gibb River Road, and hopefully next year maybe we'll get the chance to go up to Arnhem Land, which would be super cool. Alright, into our segment Peak and Pit for the week.
Yes.
So that's our highest point and our lowest point or not necessarily our highest or our lowest, just like a significant high or low point from our week.
Yeah, and this is good because it allows us to share with each other what actually stood out to us in the week, because we don't normally do that. And then on the flip side, it gives us a chance to share something challenging and keep it a bit more real, because it's a great life, but it's definitely not always sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, and we don't know what each other has picked for our peak and our pit. And the recapped episode 1, I went first for my peak and pit, so I reckon you should start us off this week. Starting
with the pit has been the pace that we're travelling at, or the pace that we've been travelling at lately. Like we touched on before, how we like to pick a section to do well, and we've really found that works for us. And staying at a campsite and only moving like once or twice in a week is what we like to do. However, doing the Gibb River Road, obviously it's not practical to be only moving once or twice a week. You've got to kind of move quick because you're so remote and there's so much ground to cover.
Yeah.
And then also, because we only have 2 weeks in the NT before we fly out, again, like we've only picked this side of the NT to do, but we've still got to move kind of quickly to try and make the most of our time here. And I've just been struggling a little bit the last few weeks with how quickly we've been travelling.
I'd agree.
Because it means that, especially I feel like our workload has picked up a bit recently too.
Yeah.
So we're working more hours, we're doing more things each day. And
which means we're filming more.
We're filming more each day as well. And so we just haven't had that downtime. We've been staying up a lot later to get things done. We've been waking up earlier.
And then you add in it like days worth of driving. Like
yes,
we've probably
done so much
3
driving.
full days of driving.
Yeah.
Just pedal to the metal sort of stuff. And it sort of eats away at those moments of relaxation that you would give yourself otherwise.
Like I really just want to watch my Netflix series, and I feel like quite often it gets to 10 o'clock at night and I haven't been able to watch what I want to watch on Netflix, and I don't have time to watch it at 10 o'clock at night, so that downtime has been pushed to the side, but that's fine.
That's only temporary. We do have a very good balance, and we prioritise.
Absolutely, and that's what I mean. Like it's not a bad thing, like, because we've been having so much fun lately. It's just, if I had to highlight a challenge, that would be it for me lately.
Yeah.
So going to my peak of the week would be NT prices. I am loving the price of everything in the Northern Territory.
I didn't even think of that. That is such a good...
It has really lifted my mood as the money person in this relationship.
Yeah.
Recording our expenses. The first caravan park we got to in the NT because we needed a few jobs days, and so we wanted to run the aircon, so we needed a caravan park for power. $35 for power and water a night, and it was an awesome spot to stay.
Yep.
And it hasn't just been the prices of accommodation, it's even been fuel.
Yeah,
what did we look up the other day? How much was fuel?
Fuel's like $2.40 on like the Gold Coast and like Newcastle, which is sort of like our baseline for like what the fuel price.
That's where we're from.
Yeah.
In WA, what was it?
About $2.40 as well.
And then what did we pay in the NT?
$2.10.
How good is that?
I don't know if it's closer to being closer to Asia or something. I really don't know why it's so much cheaper up here, but we like it.
We like it a lot, and the bank likes it, and especially when we're at this period now of our travel savings getting lower and we're getting closer to working soon, being able to get that little win of being in a state where the prices are cheaper is, that's a win for me this week.
Absolutely.
Anyway, enough about me. What's your pit of the week?
Pit of the week. I've got a memory like a goldfish, but
at least you're prepared.
Written a couple of them down. Okay, so my pit of the week would probably be leaving Derek and Sue after 3 weeks spent solid with them. Actually, probably spent a little bit longer than
5 weeks with
5
them.
weeks, and it's
3 weeks on the Gibb.
We travelled so well together that when we said goodbye, I actually felt like really sad when we were leaving them, and our little mate Bobby, like having a little dog around camp, like it's just it added a layer of like familiarity to our days and our weeks, and that's the sort of thing, like when you're traveling a lot, is you don't have a lot of familiarity.
Yes.
I cannot say that word.
Yeah,
today.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so yeah, it felt like we left our little travel family, which was kind of sad, but that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, that is hard. It's always hard when you're saying goodbye to people, and when you're saying goodbye to them, it's for a long time.
Yeah,
until
especially
you
the
see
ways
them
that we're going, we're sort of
again.
completely splitting. So yeah, we had a blast hanging out with Derek and Sue the last sort of 5 weeks or so.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
Yeah, that's my pit, and my peak would have to be coming over the Pentecost at the end of the Gibb River Road. Oh, the road was bad towards the end, and when we hit the Pentecost River and saw the Cockburn Ranges there, like they were just lit up at sunset. And it was just so magical, and it was so good to see the bitumen on the other side. I had the biggest sigh of relief, not physically, but like I just felt like, oh, we made it. Like we strung our tyres held up really well over the Gibb, which we were quite worried about. We ran out of gas, so it was nice to have gas nearby and all these facilities, and then rolling into Equestro, that's definitely my peak of the week. It was just I just felt like feeling. I was on a high.
Yeah,
so yeah, that's my peak of the week. You can't beat that.
Lovely. Okay, so jumping into our next segment, which is money chats, where we talk about something to do with money or our budget, and we break down a topic and delve a little bit deeper into it. Last week we talked about the costs involved in gearing up for a big off-grid remote trip like the Gibb River Road. This week we're going to talk about how we save money on accommodation. So some money saving tips we've picked up throughout the last year of travel on accommodation. So the number one thing that we do to save money on it is not pay for power. So that means not only looking for free camps and low cost camps. National park camps are great because they're usually in good spots and they're quite cheap. But then if we do need to go somewhere that is, there's only caravan park style accommodation available, or if we need to go to a caravan park, we will try and go unpowered if they let caravans on the unpowered sites. And then the times that we want power is really only when we want to run the aircon, because we can't really run our aircon off our batteries, or if we want to do a heap of washing. And then we want the caravan park power and water to do that. So by making sure that we are only paying for power when we need aircon or to do lots of washing, we save ourselves a lot of money, because they do charge a lot more for power than unpowered or your low cost camps. So for example, when we were coming into the NT and our first stop was going to be Katherine, we originally planned to stay drive all day, get to Katherine and pay for power and water there in a caravan park. But then as we were driving, we realised that we weren't going to get into Katherine until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, or even 6 o'clock later. It was a pretty late arrival, and we thought, well, there's no point us paying for a caravan park for tonight, because by the time we get there, the temperature's cooled off. We don't actually need to run the aircon.
So you don't need to do any washing because it's going to be dark.
So that's, even though it was cheap, only $35, it's still $35. It still adds up. So we thought we might as well just stay in one of the many free camps that were outside of Katherine for that night. And then the next day we went into Katherine and booked into the caravan park. So we've done that a few times, where another example was when we were on the Gibb River Road and we were going to Drysdale Station, and we wanted to run aircon, but then we thought about it and we thought, well, we're not actually getting there until late at night or late in the evening, so there's no point us paying for power when we don't need the aircon on.
As nice as it is to sleep with the aircon on when it's 30 degrees outside, it's an easy saving of
because I think at Drysdale we paid $40 for unpowered, whereas it was $69 for power.
So it's quite significant.
That's a big jump, or 60, or it
Yeah.
was at least $20 or $30 more for power.
So if you're like staying in a bunch of like even like low cost camps, or if you're staying in caravan park, you could potentially save yourself like between $50 and $100 a week, just by choosing,
not paying for power.
choosing wisely and thinking, oh, do I really need it? And then the conveniences of maybe not paying for power. So yeah, no, it's a really good way to save a few bucks.
And another thing that we have found saves us money on accommodation is when we do get to the bigger towns or your capital cities, we have looked at options of staying outside of town. So you look for about your half an hour-ish outside of town, find the camps there, and then that way when we do need to go into the city or the big town, you just kind of drive in, do all your things in one go, and drive out.
So you don't get the convenience of having to go and run to the auto parts store or go to Bunnings or whatever. You just have to make sure you do it all in one hit. But you can save yourself, it's amazing how much you can save by just staying that little bit out of town, just that little bit of inconvenience for a lot of the travellers that may be just like travelling for, you know, their annual holiday or something like that, where they book, say, in Broome for 2 weeks of the year and they stay in Broome. Like all the caravan parks in there were pretty chock-a-block. So
expensive. Broome's a good example because the caravan parks in Broome were up to about $70 or more a night for in the town of Broome. We spent some time in the Broome Gateway Caravan Park, which was about 25 minutes outside of Broome, and I can't remember how much it was, but it was pretty cheap.
35, I think.
Yeah,
it was
something like that. It didn't have power.
Yeah, but we did have water, so that was good. If we can't have one, it's good to have the other. Yeah,
so staying outside of town is definitely something that we look at doing. However, we have also learnt that you need to consider fuel as well.
It has to be economical.
It has to be economical, and we realised this in Adelaide. So when we travelled through South Australia and got near Adelaide, we stayed at a camp about half an hour out of Adelaide rather than staying in Adelaide itself. And it was about $20 a night cheaper than the parks in Adelaide, which isn't a huge difference. And then with our drive in and out of Adelaide every day, about an hour round trip, especially with that big range that you have to drive over to get in and out of Adelaide, we realised that with fuel we probably would have just been better off staying in the city.
Yeah, definitely.
Our third tip, and I think this is the last one, on how to save money on accommodation is looking at the overflow caravan park options. So in Western Australia, we have stayed at the overflow in Esperance, in Exmouth, and in Broome now. So we've had 3 different cases of staying in the overflow, and we find them great. We love when we see an overflow. Yeah,
because it's generally a little bit cheaper. You get the same things, but you may not get the like the views or anything like that.
So an example is when we stayed at Broome, the overflow there was only $45 a night for power and water, and you don't have to book a year in advance. So you probably know that Broome is one of those spots that the caravan parks literally book out a year in advance. So we were able to rock up to Broome with not a single booking. We just turned up that day, went to the overflow, because you're not allowed to book overflows, you just have to turn up, and we got right in the heart of Broome for $45 a night, power and water. Yes, it was crammed, and yes, it didn't have pretty views, but we don't need that. We just wanted a spot to stay in Broome, and that saved us so much money.
Absolutely. Well, a catch is though that you can only stay there 7 days, so if you want to stay in Broome for more than 7 days,
it was 5 or no 7.
Yeah, it was 7 days.
But just about the topic of overflows in general, like they're just a good money saving option because they're usually cheaper, and they mean that you can get away with turning up somewhere without having to book so far in advance, and then often you might lose deposits or something anyway because things change and you need to cancel bookings.
Yeah, especially in our experience and the way that we like to travel. So on to our next segment, which is our behind the scenes little chat about our video that just went up, which is our episode 34 Exmouth part 2, where we spent a bit more time in the Cape Range National Park. We explored the canyons and stuff on the eastern side of the national park. We explored more of the western side, the popular spots like Turquoise Bay, Oyster Sacks snorkeling spot, and we also had the time of our lives when we hired a boat for 2 days. It was a hard one to stitch together. Like it was a massive episode, 50 minutes almost. It was literally just like watching it back and editing it all together. It was the time of our lives.
Our favourite so far, for sure.
Yeah, but rather than just a general overview of the episode for our behind the scenes, we will just like sort of deep dive on a part of the episode that we might want to talk about more. So there was a bit of a dampener put on our Exmouth trip after we hired our boat. Yeah, you know, would have noticed that I blurred the number out on the boat for the hire company because they kind of did us dirty a little bit. So yeah, I rocked up at the hire place, did all the hire stuff, did all the paperwork, went and looked around the boat. It was in, you know, pretty poor shape, which I just expected. That's how it is for hire boats. The person at the hire place told me to take a photo of the engine, just because that's the most expensive part of the boat. Don't really worry. They literally told me, don't worry about taking photos of the boat.
Just didn't you say you saw something on the hull and you were like, oh, should I take a photo? And they said,
no, don't worry about that.
They specifically told you not to take a photo of the hull of the boat.
And me, like, just being excited, you know, I'm just in Exmouth, I'm getting a boat, like, it's all, like, I'm really keen for the next 2 days of really good weather. So I just took their word for it. And that bit me in the bum big time when we had 2 days, like, we were super cautious not to, like, run over shallow reef. Like, I was probably overly cautious in the way that I would, you know, drive the boat around and stuff.
And you even gave it such a good clean and wash down.
I literally give it a truck wash. I truck washed it down, and it was like, it was mint condition. It was probably better than what we left it when we dropped it off. But anyway, a couple of days goes by and we get a message saying that we've caused irreparable damage to the boat, and they will be keeping our bond. To which really which
you have to pay a big bond for.
Yeah, it was really upsetting. Like, it was like they messaged us at like really unprofessional. It was like 8 o'clock at night, like 2 days after our hire. We thought everything was all sweet. We get a message saying that they're keeping our bond. So
because the damage was irreparable.
Irreparable damage.
And then they sent a photo of the damage to the hull that Brad had pointed out when he first hired the boat.
But stupidly, I didn't take a photo of it or a video of the hull. But luckily, we make YouTube videos, and we were able to identify the part where they said the irreparable damage was, and show that damage before we even put the boat in the water, which they were cool with. But it doesn't really end there, because the photos that they sent us, the boat was not in the same position that we dropped it off in, and the boat was also dirty. So it makes me think that it was an old photo. I don't know, maybe this is just me being skeptical or cynical, but I think that they might try this out on a bunch of like different people. Yeah, so people might just pay the bond, or like
well, the bond's already taken.
The bond is taken, so they might just keep your bond, and people are like, well, it's our sort of word against theirs. How are we going to fight it? We can't fight it. We haven't got proof. Then, you know, it's just on us. So that sucks big time, and that's pretty shady practice if that is actually what's going on there. That's what I feel is going on there. But yeah, really disappointing, and really like boils my blood that sort of stuff goes on. So word of warning: learn from our mistakes. Anything you hire, whether it be a car or a boat, in any part of the world, yeah, definitely do a walk around of it beforehand.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you know, and you know it's so obvious to take photos of stuff before you hire it.
Yeah.
But like you said, you just
didn't expect it to be an extortion attempt.
Just didn't expect it. Yeah. And thank goodness we had the videos of it. Literally, we had videos of us when we brought the boat back before it went in the water, and there the damage was. So it was so good, so satisfying to be able to send that to the people and say, hang on a minute, look at this. And straight away they were like, oh,
our bad.
Never mind.
Our bad. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Here's your bond back. See you later.
interesting.
Dodgy. But anyway, we had a lot of fun on the boat.
And that's led us into our idea for next year when we do the Ningaloo and Exmouth again.
Yes,
we're just going to buy a boat.
We're just going to buy a boat, I think, when we go to Exmouth, because we had, if you watch the video, like, I don't think you can contain our excitement for the whole 2 days. And we barely scratched the surface of what you can do with a boat in Exmouth. So I think we're going to, buy a boat for the time that we're in Exmouth, and we're going to have so many cool adventures and open up so much more opportunity for us to explore the Ningaloo.
We got that idea from a few people now that we've heard of who did exactly that. They bought a boat while they were there and then they just sell it off when they're going to leave, and so many people have been doing that and it seems to work really well. So that's what we'll look at doing next time.
Yes, sir. Alright, so moving on to our last section, which is an audience question. So you guys might have a question for us. It doesn't have to be related to anything, it just might be just something that you may want to know, and we can choose to answer it in our recap episode. So this one is super applicable to what we've just done, being Gibb River Road, and it's a question on what time of the year is the best time of the year to do the Gibb, and which way to do it. Like, do we go from east to west or west to east? Obviously this is all our opinion, and we've only sort of got one baseline, one baseline of like what we did, but I think if we were to do it again, we would do it the exact same way.
Hopefully in answering this, we'll give you some factors to think of, because everyone likes to travel different, so you can then apply that to the way that you like to travel. But for us, we did it right at the end of the season in September. Yeah. And we loved that because firstly, it was so quiet. Like, there was barely any people. Well, there was people, but nowhere near as busy as what we'd heard it had been, especially when you get to the station stays, to be able to get there and have it not fully packed and not have to worry about booking stuff. And just being able to enjoy some peace and quiet at those places. So the people on the road and people like in the campgrounds, like, we were able to get primo sites at all the camps that we stayed at. I think we had the pick of the bunch for all the camps that we stayed at. Also, there's a whole lot less traffic on the road, so there's a lot less dust, there's a lot less stones getting kicked up, there's a lot less corrugations. I can't believe it. We replaced our windscreen when we were in Broome. A few people told us not to, but we had a crack right across our windscreen, and I feel like it would have gotten a lot worse. Well, I could already see it was growing, so we replaced it, thinking that we might need to replace that windscreen again when we get to Darwin, just from the rock chips and stuff. But the windscreen has sustained a few rocks and it is unchipped, so we're very happy with that. Because we literally barely didn't see many people coming the other way when we were driving.
There was a lot of clean air compared to when we were up the Cape. I know we were in a bigger convoy, but there was still a lot of traffic traveling faster than us and oncoming. And the air was just so dirty up there, but like here we were in clean air for most of the time, which is really good. The traffic and just the sheer amount of people on the track and in the campgrounds and station stays, that's it's definitely preferable for us to have less people there. So that's a good reason to go at the end of the season. Another good reason is there's a whole lot less water around. So the Gibb has like countless amounts of water crossings. Some of them can get really deep in the normal time that you travel up there. We had a few water crossings, but none of them were sort of high enough to get water into the car or come into the van sort of thing. So I think the highest water crossing we might have went through was maybe like a metre. And that was at El Questro without the van. But with the van on, there's probably maybe like 500 mil or 600 mil or something like that of water. Whereas I've seen videos of people going through some of these culverts and water crossings with torrents of water rushing through, and like a metre of water rushing through a creek, a freshwater creek. So yeah, there's it was good to not have that sort of level.
We didn't want high water crossings because we didn't want water in our setup. However, if you're someone who loves that and froths on like the you know, heavy water crossings and being a bit gnarly, then obviously you should go earlier in the season.
Yeah, go and hit them at 100 km.
We didn't have anything gnarly on our trip. Or El Cuestro was a bit, but yeah.
That was a bit how you go, but we did it as safely as we possibly could.
Yeah. And speaking of water levels, don't worry about the gorges and waterfalls and whatnot not running, because they were definitely all running. They definitely all had plenty of water still to be able to admire them and enjoy them. I think there were a couple that we didn't do because we'd heard they weren't as good as some of the others. And because the water was getting a bit stagnant, but we felt like we did more than enough waterfalls and gorges, and we did all the best ones, you know, the ones that you mainly hear of, and they were all amazing. So I wouldn't let that deter you either. But I guess the other part of that is which way to travel, from east to west or west to east. So obviously we did it from west to east,
and that's the way I'd do it again. I don't know, it's just, I feel like you get a better spread of things to do. Like by the time you get to El Cuestro,
which is at the end.
Which is which is on the eastern end of the Gibb. When you get to El Cuestro, you're sort of ready for like civilization again. You're sort of ready to have like everything to pick and choose.
Sort of ready.
Oh well, yeah, you're definitely
desperate for it.
Definitely ready.
And El Cuestro is very resort-like. It's a very nice spot to end your trip and be where all those facilities and nice things are.
Whereas if you go from east to west, by the time you finish the Gibb River Road, you're at Leonard River, which like is a nice camp for the night, but it's not like spectacular.
Well, it's just a dusty free camp.
Yeah, and you still got a 4 or 5 hour drive to Broome from there, so you still got a fair few k's, and once you finish there, you got a bit to go until you get to civilization. Whereas it feels like we just strolled off the end onto bitumen and then into a resort. Like, it was really nice. I was like, oh, this is the R&R that we needed.
And speaking of that, I think the last station that you would kind of stay at, if you're going the opposite way than what we did, if you're coming from the east and going across, the last station you'd be at, would it be Mount Barnett, Menning Gorge?
Yeah.
And then you've still got a couple days worth of gorges and whatnot after that to do. So when you're at the end of your trip and you're knackered and you're starting to get gorged out, to then have still, like, after that last station, 3 or 4 days of gorges and free camping and whatnot, it could probably be exhausting. Whereas it is definitely more gorge heavy on the western end. So you start the Gibb at Tunnel Creek area, and there's heaps of gorges and waterfalls and whatnot to do, and then you get about halfway onto the Gibb, where you can go up north like we did, up to McGowan's and Honeymoon Bay, or you can just stay on the Gibb. But from about that halfway point heading east, there's not really any more gorges and waterfalls and stuff until you get to El Cuestro. So it's a really nice way to break up the trip, because you come in strong, gorge, waterfall, multiple gorges a day, like busy, free camping, everyone's excited, spirits are high. And then you get to your halfway point and you can head up north and have a bit of a different experience up in the remote community and doing Mitchell Falls and whatnot. And then you keep heading along and you have Ellen Bray Station, which is a nice station stay. And then you have El Cuestro, and you finish, like we talked before, in that nice resort style facilities with heaps of gorges and stuff there, but they're all in the one spot. Whereas coming the other way, you would have to finish very busy, gorge, busy. Big
drive to Broome or to Derby. So I don't
know, that's just our opinion. Obviously, if you're in the NT and you want to do the Gibb, you're not going to be like, well, I can't do it because it's not as good to go that way. That's obviously, we would do it that way as well if we had to. That's just our opinion. If you ask, like, a lot of people have asked which way should they do it, because they have the luxury of tossing up which way they want to go.
I suppose going the other way, you also have the excitement of going to Western Australia as well. So,
absolutely.
So there's a few different factors to play on there, but I think if we were to do it again, we would do the same thing. Also, the roads were really good at the back end of the season. They were grading it for like the last time, I guess, before the wet. I don't know if they graded it.
In saying that, they grade it at the start of the season too. So if you're doing it in the middle of the season. And something that we should also mention there is how quickly the road changes. We were constantly getting road reports from travellers, people we'd meet and friends who'd done it, and then even like a week later when we did that section of road, it was totally different to what we'd been told.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really base what you do on people's opinion of the road, because it's not their opinion, sorry, it's their statement of what the road is, but it just changes.
It changes literally. The road can have no corrugations 1 week, and then 5 or 7 days later can be completely corrugated. It's just how it is. I don't know why.
And we saw that firsthand when we went up north. When we went up north to Drysdale and beyond to Clumbaroo and McGowan's, the road up was actually pretty good.
Like highway condition, yeah.
And then when we came back down just 5
it was like a
days
different
later,
road.
5 or 6 days later, it was shocking. And we were thinking, we just did this road 6 days ago.
Yeah, I'd say
how quickly it
if
can
you're doing the
change.
Gibb, just expect it to be bad. That's
because then that's what we thought, and then we actually got most of it was really good. So we were like, woohoo!
Yeah. All right.
So that wraps up this episode of our Australia trip recap. We hope you got something out of it and enjoyed watching. Let us know what you think in the comments. Send us a question or give us any feedback on segments, you know, things that we talk about.
Yeah.
And thank you once again for all the lovely comments last time, because it really meant a lot to us when we were so nervous to put it out there.
Yeah.
We really appreciate how kind and supportive everybody was.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't seen our last episode on the Ningaloo, I'll put it right here. It is a cracker. Set aside like an hour. Sit down, crack a beer, cheese platter. It is the best.
Yeah.
I might be biased, but yeah. Alright, we'll see you in the next episode, and be good, and we'll see you later.
Bye.